Okay, so I welcome you to day 6, part 2 of the 30 Days Tech Career Challenge. This 30 Days Tech Career Challenge is a training series that is designed for you if you want to begin a career in tech, especially IT networking and cybersecurity. Okay, so in the day 1, we covered what a computer network is all about. In day 2, we talk about components of a network. In day 3, we talk about numbering system, how computer interpret information. While in day 4, we talk about IP address and MAC address. In day 5, we talk about IP address, private address, public address, subnet mask, and all of that. In day 6, this is day 6, part 1, where we talk about what a local area network is all about. If you have not gone through all of this, I want you to do that so that you can understand better this part 2. Okay? But if you have gone through day 5, day 6, part 1, then good luck. You are welcome to day 6, part 2, where we'll be talking about Unicast, Multicast, broadcast, default gateway. Okay, so in part 1, we covered concept of a network, concept of broadcast domain, Ethernet. That's what we covered in day 6, part 1. Okay, if you have any question while watching the video, while going through the training, drop the question in the comments. Okay, and make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on every other training that will be coming up on this channel. Let's go to the class.
Welcome back. So let's discuss unicast, multicast, broadcast, and default gateway. Okay. So unicast. What is unicast? Unicast means you are talking to someone directly. You are facing somebody. You want to send message to the person directly. So that's why I call it one-on-one communication. Okay. And this one-on-one communication is taking place. No any other device in the LAN is receiving that message, is receiving that message, except the device that message is destined for. Okay, so let me go and show you an example. So now, let's say this is a company. This is a company environment, and this company has 2 LAN. Okay, it has, let's say this is LAN A. This is LAN A. Say this is LAN A. On the left hand side is LAN A, while on the right hand side is LAN B. Okay. So let's say each of these LAN represents a department. It is a department in the company that is inside this LAN. Okay, this LAN represents a department. Everybody in the department, they are on this LAN A network. People that are in the HR department, they are on LAN A network. While people in the accounting department, they are on LAN B network. So now, unicast, let's say hosts H1 want to communicate with host H3 directly. So what will happen in that regard is what we call unicast. Okay, it means host A1 will just forward its traffic to the switch and tell the switch that it is going to host H2. Okay, like I said, host can be printer, can be mobile device, can be your phone, can be your phone, can be your laptop, any device that has that capability to receive IP, okay, to receive IP on a network is called host. Okay, so now, so host 1 and host 2, they are communicating. Maybe this is a laptop and this is a printer. Okay, maybe the laptop wanted to send a document to the printer for printing. In that regard, we call it unicast communication. That is unicast communication. Unicast communication. Now, multicast. Multicast is a form of communication that is sent to a particular group of people. Okay, particular group of people in a LAN. Particular group of people in a LAN. It is not for everybody. If you remember our IP address class, I talked about class D IP address. Okay, I said they are used for multicast. They are used for multicast. So any traffic or any message that is sent to this IP address will be sent to a particular set of people, okay? A particular set of group in a LAN. So now let's say, let's go to LAN B now for this example of Unicast. Let's say host 1 here want to send message to just host 2, host 4, okay, and host 3. Okay, so that is a multicast because everybody's inside the LAN is not receiving the message. It is only a particular set of people. Okay, let's say host 1 is sending message to just host 2 and host 3. Okay, that is a multicast communication. A multicast communication. A multicast communication because such traffic is only designed for just a group of hosts in a LAN on the network. Okay, on the network. So all what host 1 need to do is to just forward the traffic to the switch and say this traffic is only destined for host 1 and for host 3. That's all. Let's go to the next one, which is broadcast. Okay, broadcast is to everybody. A broadcast is to everybody in the LAN. Everybody in the LAN. Everybody in the LAN will hear broadcast. So broadcasts, everybody in the LAN will receive a broadcast message. Okay, everybody in the LAN will receive a broadcast message. Everybody in the LAN will receive a broadcast message. Okay, so let me give you a particular practical example. This is how switch works. This is how switch works. Let's say you just connected all these devices. You just connected host 1, host 2, host 3, host 4, host 5 to the switch. Let's now say host 1 want to send message to host 5. Host 1 want to send message to host 5. This is what will happen. They don't know each other before now. They've not communicated before now. What host one will do is that it will send that packet to the broadcast address. And once the switch receives the broadcast address, the switch will relay this message to everybody on the LAN. That who is host 5? Oh, I want to speak with host 5. This message is for host 5. Host 2 will receive the message, it will describe it, we just throw it away. I'm not host 5. What's my business with host 5? Host 3 will receive it, it will open it and see it is for host 5. It will just throw it away. It's not for me. Host 4 will receive the message, he will throw it away. The message is not for me. When host 5 receives it, it is me. Oh, okay, it's my message. So host 5 will reply. Once host 5 reply, switch will keep that record. Okay, they call it MAC. Let's say we have MAC address table. MAC address table. So now, in this MAC address table, the switch will keep that record that host 5 just reply. So host 5 is the person calling Tolu, okay, or Daniel, the MAC address. It will keep the MAC address. Easy. Oh, the switch will record it that host 5 is this person calling Daniel. Okay. At the same time, the switch will also keep the record that host 1 that sent message earlier is the person called Bernard. So next time Bernard, which is host 1, wants to communicate with Daniel, host 5, they will not need to broadcast again. So all what Daniel will do, which is host 1, is send message to the switch and say, I want to talk to Bernard. Switch will be like, you talked to Bernard earlier now. You talked to 5 earlier now. Okay, let me just send the message to Bernard direct. It is now a Unicast communication. Okay, the purpose of that broadcast is to learn who is Daniel, who is host 5. Okay, the first broadcast is to learn. That first time that host 1 will send message to everybody who is host 5. The purpose of that is to learn, for the switch to learn who is host 5. So the next message that host 1 will be sending to host 5 will just go direct, because the switch now have a record of host 5. Okay, so a switch normally keep what is called MAC address table. It is under this MAC address table that it will list people's MAC address, people on the network MAC address. To list their MAC address. Okay, so that whenever communication wants to take place, you will not need to be shouting again, or for it to be able to send message to the original recipient of the message. So let's talk about default gateway. Okay, see default gateway as the exit point of a LAN, exit point to connect to another network, to connect to another LAN. Okay, to another network. So now let's say this is LAN A. We still have our this thing here, our network diagram here. LAN A and LAN B, 2 different departments. So now, from our explanation of router, for two LAN to communicate, okay, for two different networks to communicate, two different LAN to communicate, they need a device called router, right? If you remember. Okay, so for somebody in for a host in LAN A, for instance, for it to communicate, let's say host 1 in LAN A want to communicate with host 4 in LAN B. Okay, such communication will not take place except you bring a device called router. So now, it is when you bring router that it is when you bring a router that the router will now be able to achieve the communication. Okay, so now, what is default gateway? Default gateway is the exit point of a LAN. Exit point. So now, if host 1 wants to communicate with host 4, host 1 in LAN A in HR department wants to communicate with host 4 in account department LAN B. Okay, that means they will need a router. That means this LAN A need an exit point to leave this LAN. Okay, that exit point is what we call default gateway. Okay, let's say this is your compound. This is your compound on the street. This is another compound on the street. Different compound, different house compound. That means this person needs to open the gate of this compound to go out on the street, then move to another person's compound. Okay, that exit gate, the exit gate of this compound, the exit gate is called default gateway. Default gateway. So now, default gateway, we allow a message or traffic to leave a particular LAN so that it can go to another LAN or to another network. So now, let's say this is a 192.168.10.0/24 network, and this network is a 172.168.10. Sorry, I want to use 16.10.0/24 network. Okay, these are two different networks now. So now, let's say this host 1 is assigned IP address of .1, 198.162.1, or let's say .10. This is assigned .5. This is assigned .3. Okay, this person also is assigned 172.16.10.4 is .5, .6, .7, .8. Okay, so now for this, so this particular host 7, the IP address is 172.16.10.7, right? And this host 1 is 192.168.10.10. .10. 16.10. Okay? That means if this host 1 is saying, I want to communicate with host 4 of LAN B, which is 172.16.10.7. The switch inside LAN A don't know anything about it. Okay? The switch inside LAN A doesn't know anything about it. So it needs a default gateway, an exit. Let me tell you how a LAN works. When this host 1 says, I want to communicate with 172.16.10.7, he also just says it. That host 1 will just send that traffic to the switch, and the switch will be like, nobody's wearing 172.16.10.7 here. Do I have default gateway? Let me send it to the gate. Maybe it is my next neighbor. It is my next neighbor. Okay? This line here, we assume that this thing is for my nearest neighbor. So it will just send it to the default gateway. So that default gateway is usually the first IP address in the network. Okay, so that means you will need a default gateway of 192.168.10.1. It can be any IP address, okay, but most time network engineers normally use the first IP address in a network. Okay, so I don't know why. That's how I met it, and I think I'm also used to it. So there will be a default gateway of 10.1. LAN B2, we have a default gateway for its network, which will be 172.16.10.1. It should be configured on the interface of this router. Don't worry, I will show you how to do the configuration. So that when host 1 sends traffic to LAN B, host 4, 172.16.10.7, the switch in LAN A will just be like, okay, you want to communicate with 172 network, right? I don't know who the 172 is. So default gateway, take exit point, take, open the gate of the compound. Maybe it's my next neighbor. It will just forward that traffic to 10.1, which is the router. The router will now be like, okay, do I have anything like 172 on my interface? The router will be like, yes, I have 172. So it will pass it to the default gateway of LAN B, 172.16. I have .1, I have 172 network. So it will pass it to this switch. So this switch will now be like, who is 172.16.10.7? Then the traffic will finally arrive at its destination. Okay? Let me explain again. Host 1 here in LAN A wants to communicate with host 4 in LAN B. And these two hosts, they are on different networks. LAN A and LAN B are two different networks. The network address of LAN A is 192.168.10.0/24. Okay? And the IP address of the host 1 is 192.168.10.10. While the IP address of host 4 in LAN B is 172.16.10.7. Okay? This is the IP address of host 1. This is the IP address of host 4 in LAN B. So now, host 1 in LAN A wants to communicate with host 4 in LAN B. So now, what host 1 will do is that it will send the traffic down to the switch that I want to communicate with 172.16. And the switch will be like, in this our compound, nobody is bearing 172.16. Maybe it is our next neighbor, it is the next compound. That means if we push that message to the exit gate of that compound, we call it default router. Okay, so that default, call it default gateway, sorry. That default gateway is usually the first IP address in the engineer normally use the first IP address in the network address. So that default gateway is where you now have, is where you are now connected to the next compound, to another network. Okay, to another network. So now, to another network. So now, once the default router or default gateway receive that message here, the router will be like, where are you going to? You are going to 172, right? Okay, you want to connect to another compound where their name is 172.16. Okay, do I have it connected to me? Yes, I have it connected to me. Okay, let me forward it to their compound. If we have somebody bearing 10.7. Okay, so the switch in LAN B will now say, okay, who is 172.16.10.7? Then the traffic will finally arrive at host 4. Okay, that's how communication takes place between two networks. Okay, so a LAN always needs a default gateway. A LAN always needs a default gateway for it to connect to another network. The phone that you are using needs a default gateway to connect to another network, maybe to the internet. Okay, the other network can be an internet, it can be another LAN, it can be anything. For it to leave that LAN, that network that it is, it needs a default gateway to connect to another network. Okay, so default gateway is just an exit point for a network so that it can connect to another network. Okay, it's just like you have to compound. You have to compound. So you need to open your gate before you can enter another person's compound on your street. Okay, so that gate, that's your compound gate that you open is the default gateway. Then you move to the next compound that you are going. Don't worry, in the practical class, I will demonstrate this very well so that you can understand it better. Thank you for staying to this moment. See you in the practical class.